Previously, we saw how to use trajectories to alter the path of an object that has position keys on it. Now I'm going to show you a related technique that's going to give you a little bit more power and control, and that's a path constraint, in which you can attach an object onto a spline curve, and it will travel down that curve. We'll create a camera flyover for this landscape. It'll be a helicopter shot. So I need a camera. Go to the Create panel and choose Cameras. Free, because this is going to be an animated camera. Click anywhere in the perspective view to create that camera, and it'll be faced downward. We want to change the rotation order, so we'll have maximum control over rotations. Go to the Motion panel, and under Rotation, Axis Order, set it to ZXZ. Grab the Rotate tool, and make sure you're in Gimbal Reference Coordinate System, and rotate the camera so it's facing up, level to the horizon. When I release the mouse, I can see that the y-axis has some non-zero value. I'll set that to exactly 90 degrees. Next, I'm ready to create a line that's going to be the path. Let's do that in the top view. Go to Alt-W, dolly out a little bit. It'll be easier for us to see if we go into shaded mode, F3, maybe zoom in, Alt-W once again. And we can turn the grid off too. That's the G key to turn the grid off. And then go to the Create panel once again, Shapes, Line, and I'll create my helicopter path. And I'm just going to create corner points here, just to keep things simple. And then right-click to finish that line, and then right-click to exit the tool. And let's go ahead back to our perspective view. With the Move tool, move that line up, just increase its elevation so it's not inside the landscape. And I made the landscape see-through so it would be easier for us to see that line. So now I want to turn that off. So I'll select the landscape, right-click and go to Object Properties and disable see-through. All right, now we're ready to attach the camera to that path. Select the camera and go to the Animation menu and choose Constraints, Path Constraint. And then as you hover your mouse, you'll see a line. And when you get close to a spline curve, your cursor will change to a crosshair. You can click on that line. And now the camera is attached to the path. And it's going to travel along the path from the beginning to the end over the course of the current time range. I had 100 frames in my timeline, so it will take 100 frames to get from point A to point B. I can play that back, and you can see it's traveling. We could change the direction of travel a couple of ways. One would be to change these keyframes. If I just move these around, then actually the object will travel in the opposite order. Having changed the positions of those keyframes, now the object is going to be at 100% along the path at the beginning of the timeline, and at 0% along the path at the end of the timeline. I'll play that and we can see it happen. That's a little bit non-intuitive, actually. I prefer it to go from 0 to 100 over the course of time, so I'm actually going to move those back where they were. The other way that you can reverse the course of direction is just to change the curve itself. Select that line, and then go into the Modify panel, and in Vertex mode, select the vertex that you want to be the start vertex. Select that. Scroll down, and among all of these tools, you will see Make First. When you click on that, now that's the first vertex. You always know which is the first vertex because it's highlighted in yellow and all the others are white. So now I've reversed the curve direction, and the object's moving the opposite direction. All right, well, I'm going to switch it back to what I had, in fact. Just wanted to show you how you could do that. We can also, of course, edit the curve. Let's make these smooth points instead of corner points. I'll select all of them, right-click, and convert those to smooth. And now you can see we've got a smooth curve, and the camera's path is going to be a lot nicer. Let's see what that looks like. We'll load that into a view. Let's choose the front view here. Click on Front and choose Cameras, Camera 1. And as we scrub through here, we can see that the camera is moving. Cool, so we've got our line the way we want it more or less. I mean, we could adjust this, change the path a little bit if we want. But now let's look at rotating the camera. So we can go out of line subobject mode. Select the camera, and if you go into the Motion panel, you'll see some parameters here for this path constraint controller. Namely, you can turn on Follow if you wish. And then you can choose which axis. And in this case, it should be the Y axis. And now the camera is facing forward along the length of that curve. All right, let's go to the camera view and press F3 so we can see it in shaded mode. And then rewind and play that back. And we can see that the camera is rotating as it travels down that path. All right, and if we change the elevation of the points on the curve, that will also affect the camera's rotation. So if I go to vertex mode and move some of these up or down, then that's going to influence the rotation. But it's all automatic. We have limited control over it. Exit out of sub-object. Rewind and play that back. The camera is rotating, and if we select it once again, we can have some control over how that behaves using the parameters here. Let's go back to frame 1. Select the camera. And back in the motion panel, you'll see that we've got bank. We turn that on, then as you see, as soon as I turn that on or off, the camera rotated along its own line of sight. That's banking. So the camera is actually now going to turn as it goes up and down. And we can change the amount of banking here so we can make it really extreme if we want. Make our audience really seasick. So that's really automatic. We have some limited control here. What I would prefer to do actually is animate the rotations by hand. So I'll turn follow off and use the rotate tool in gimbal mode. Get in close in that top view. Rotate the camera around and also tilt it down. And then key it. Go into the key filters and we only want to key the rotation. So turn position, scale, and everything else off. Only keep rotation on. And on frame 0, enable set key and key the rotations. Then I can just go down to different points in time and adjust the rotation values. Make that turn a little bit and add some manual banking in whichever direction I want. And then key it. Go down a little bit more in time. Rotate it in various axes. And key it. So I think this method just gives us more control. We can have a more artistic approach to this by manually animating these keys of rotation. All right, so there we go. Let's take a look at that. Turn off set key. Maximize the camera view with Alt-W. Rewind and play that back. All right, and so we've got some banking as well. Last thing I would do is change the speed here. We can do that from the dope sheet. Let's give ourselves some more time here. Go in the time configuration dialog. And let's make it 20 seconds. So at 30 frames per second, that would be 600 frames. Click OK. And go into the menus and choose Graph Editors, Track View, Dope Sheet. And what we want to do here is just use the ranges. So if we have the world track here, and we have modify child keys visible, then we can see all the keyframes, and we can scale those. But even better, we can enable ranges. And now this will be all the keyframes in the whole world. Go back to edit keys for a moment. So we can see camera 1 has got keyframes on the path constraint. You see the percentage along the path has got some keyframes there. And then we've also got keyframes on the rotation. All right, so we'll do this in edit ranges mode. It's so easy. Just click the end of this range bar and just drag that down to frame 600. We can see it changing in the timeline at the bottom of the screen as well. Just drop that up there and then rewind and play it back. We've got our helicopter shot. All right, so that was pretty easy, wasn't it? Path constraints are pretty great. We could obviously work on this some more and make it even better. In this chapter, we've explored a couple of the most common types of controllers, but of course there are many, and you can explore those on your own. There's a lot of really fun ones. You can even drive animation with an audio wave file. And that concludes our chapter on controllers and constraints.